Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Excusez-moi, je m'installe.
Hello everyone. Just give me a few minutes, a few seconds rather, to take a seat. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So, thank you very much indeed for extend this invitation to me. It was for me a pleasure to come back to this very site. So I was asked to make a presentation on our Behind the Museum project and its role in the evaluation of the heritage. I try to focus on exactly this. My name is Romain Jacquet. I'm head of project and a training TIC at Musée et Société en Wallonie, MSW. This is a non-profit organization in Wallonia. We have a very small team of 7 members. So behind the museum, what is it, concretely speaking? Maybe I can wait for the sound to stop. So what is behind? It's a web platform available for free through the link with which you can discover 23 museums and the backgrounds of the museums, the back stages of those museums in 3 different ways. The first way to discover those 23 museums are through virtual visits, then through interviews that I do myself with the staff of those museums, and then there is a photo gallery of pieces of art exhibited there. So first, the virtual immersive visits. The goal is to see the backstage of those museums. So I go there and I digitize those areas not accessible to the public. So for example, the offices, the warehouses, places of work usually not opened or accessible to the public. I have digitized, for example, the Maison du Patrimoine Mozan, a museum along the Meuse River, the attics, which is a very nice place but not accessible to the public. On the left side, you can see the warehouse of the Photography Museum. It's pretty interesting, not accessible to the public, and you can see that there are small bubbles, icons with content information, something that you will not find if you make a physical visit of the museum. On the right side, you have the Great Tower of the Grand-Hornu, which is not available. It is on this side, but it's not accessible to the public. I guess it's dangerous to go up there, but it was very nice to underline its value. So we decided to work with this space and to digitize it. We also value difficult, not very accessible places that you can only visit upon reservation or during heritage days. Les Réserves du Solvant, for example, are collections of textile machinery from the Industrial Revolution up to the 20th century from the city of Verviers, but we are also dealing there with collections belonging to the WAP, Wallonie-Brussels Federation, and this building is not easily accessible by the public, so we decided to highlight it upon the request of the museum, so the city of Verviers, to put it on the internet and also highlight the voluntary workers working there. And this was an added value, in my opinion. It was an opportunity to show what people working there do as a trade, and the fact that there are voluntary workers with still the skills to use and refurbish this machinery. It was very interesting to show this on the internet. On the right side, there is the Spienne Minière Neolithical mine site of Spienne. It had an industrial role in the history of man. It's 8 meters underground, and you take a scale to go there. So you can imagine that it's not easy to access. We also digitize temporary exhibitions after the end date of those exhibitions. For example, this one on the coal exhibition that you are probably going to visit today or tomorrow. When it will be ended, when it will be over, it will be still possible to visit it on the internet. Then I digitize areas who are going to be modified or who are going to disappear. For example, the aquarium museum from the Liège University, because the aquarium is going to undergo a big refurbishment works very soon. And this museum had photographs from the 1960s and 70s, so a former way to present university collections. And in this case, for reasons of public requirements or public needs, choices were made, and these photographs or photographic approach from a museum visitor are going to disappear. So now we are going to have a digital register of those photographs. It might be interesting in the future for a researcher of such projects. I don't know if we have sound. Yes, we have. Quick presentation of my institute, what we do. The interpreter can't hear with the music what he says, unfortunately, so the interpreter will wait for the end of the video to continue working. The interpreter apologizes, but he can't hear what the speaker says with the music of the video. Apologies for not translating this. So then the second way is by way of interviews or beyond the use of the 3D technology. It's very dear to me to try and give value to the human factor, human actor. So when I go there to the museum, we try to identify specific traits who would gain in being highlighted. That was in the Musée du Solvant or in the Folklore Museum at Tournai. People told me that they wanted there to highlight the role of their voluntary workers because they do an incredible work, but they are never highlighted. There is never any focus on them. Also, I made interview of people at the reception, also of the cleaning personnel of those museums, because I believe they are much interesting indeed. But beyond the human factor, I also try to present the history of the museum, how it works, but also the passion everyone is feeling, for example, about the cleaning personnel. Some of them told me that for them it was great, exceptional to make a cleaning job, but in a museum with pieces of art. So, yes, I want to implement a storytelling to try to add value, colors, taste to those 3D visits of the museum. Then we have a photo gallery, a photograph register to give value to pieces of maybe heritage, but not necessarily. Also daily pieces of art with an photographic artistic touch. The idea is to give it value as fully fledged pieces of art. On the right hand, for example, this is the sample framework of the Solvang Museum at Verviers. It might not appear to be so much iconic, but you can give value to such pieces by the right photographic touch. And for BIM projects, for example, but also when we prepare folders or promotion material for museums in Wallonia, we like to use such photographs because we consider it has a strong identity. On the left side, now you have the Folklore Museum. And yes, you can see that this is a staff member, is called Jackie, and we decided to make a photograph of him. He was quite an exceptional person, and so we decided to highlight him for everything he did for the museum, but also for everything he does for the poor and for his museum. So we always try to identify things normally reduced to shadow and to highlight them. So who are the beneficiaries? We are a federation, so the first beneficiaries are, of course, our member museum. It's a service we give to the requesting museums. We don't go find them. They have to apply to us through a quick application. The only condition is that they tick several boxes in terms of access, digitalization possibilities, and so forth. We try to work with anyone. We work with public and private museums. Some private museums are non-profit organizations or other. We don't mind. Also museums on whole issues. We have heritage, fine arts, folklore museums. So we really try to have as broad as possible approach to represent as much as possible of Wallonia. We have the Royal Museum of Marinemont, which is a very big museum, and a very small museum, Strawberry Museum in Wallonia, which is a very small museum. So we try to represent equally big and small structures. We take the same approach, whatever the museum we work with. We try to value the same way on social networks, on websites, through the newsletters. We try to give value to all those museums. With interactive boards as well, we try to give the possibility to take profit, to use the BIM project, and we try to find a balance in all museums. Some museums have not integrated the project yet, because we try to have as many museums from the Namur province than in the Hainaut province. But of course, there are more museums in the Hainaut province, and which means that we have more museums from this specific region. But we really try not to make sure that no one is frustrated, and to have a free access to all museums in Wallonia.
So the second advantage concerns the content. As I said, they cannot actually meet during the visit, so we try to insist on that, on the things which are not visible or not easily easily be found. It is a model which is unique and centralized. The audience must not go to the internet and start searching on different sites, and it is also free of charge. As I said, this is one of the peculiarities. It is a web-responsive website, meaning that you can use it on your smartphone, tablet, or PC. The page will adapt to the device, and that's a very important feature in order to have the best experience for the user. Here you can see some numbers for the visitors. Since 2020, out of 23 virtual visits, we had 41,500 visitors, and 119,000 on the web, RS and mailing. And as for the platform, 14,000. You can see like the YouTube player, and if you don't click, it's considered as a presence, and if you click, then it's considered as a visit. That's considered as a museum promotion. Since we have been online, I said we've had 14,000 users. Out of these, 70% Belgium and 8.64% of French. And this project has been financed and supported by the French Federation. We don't have any translators because that's a high cost. For the moment, we only have it in one language, but then we will see for the future. What's interesting for us is that this is industrial heritage site. There are 6 elements that can satisfy some of the needs and criteria which are important for the industrial site. First of all, the virtual visit allows diversification for the promotion of the heritage site. Digitalization is very important. If it is well used, if it's used correctly, can help the audience to discover the institution, the site. These will also allow the access to some inaccessible spaces or spaces which are not usually open. Third point, we want to improve the accessibility for people who have some mobility issues. I already said there are some sites that cannot be modified in order to add a lift or the features for mobility, reduced mobility visitors. They asked me to create a virtual visit. It could be valorized. Why not put it on the ground floor in order to allow the visit? Then the 3 other points concern, first of all, the creation of a product in order to anticipate or complete a physical visit, an on-site visit. Because, you know, online there are some limits. Sometimes the images are not so good, but there are some other limitations. Of course, you can use your mouse in order to see a place, but it's not the whole experience, because you cannot have the smell. The senses are not involved, all the senses. Therefore, we can complete the visit, but it all depends how you decide to use this virtual visit, because you can include a QR code, for example, through which you can complete the information. Why not? It can be interesting. And then you can also include some more contents like videos, sound, pictures. You can include archives in order to add value to your museum. There are some archives which are not accessible. It could be interesting to include them. And another thing which could be interesting for us, the virtual visit allow us to create a digital archives in the shape of a 3D plan in a AutoCAD format or other that are accessible and available. AutoCAD, for example, is a format which is used mainly by architects, and it will always be there, maybe in another shape with other features, but it will be there. And we can actually protect the places, the professions, and the know-how. Here you can see the laboratory, high-tension laboratory in Mumons. Here you can see some devices which date back to the 20th century. It is not accessible only for students of the universities or other schools, but we cannot go there. Therefore, why not make it accessible on internet? I will conclude my intervention now. So, through the virtual visit, we have several goals. The first ones are short and medium-term ones, 2020-2022, sensibilization, so the co-construction of a digital project, the start of the use of the virtual visit with his pros and cons. As I said, when online, you don't have the whole experience with the 5 senses. And very important, there is no risk in financing the museums, because usually you just pay your annual quota, your annual fee, sorry. But this kind of project, if you do it by yourself, you must invest in terms of time, and sometimes you have new technologies, so it can be disorienting. And in the long term, starting from 2023, the goal is to be more independent by granting, by assuring the training, practical training. For example, the 29th of September, I did a training in the Malmaison Museum, and then there is a technical part during which we visit the museum, a virtual visit, and then I present I show all the peculiarities for the museum to be independent. This training will lead to the customer service through tablet or camera with with an agreement, of course, because all these devices, all these tools are very expensive. And if the museum wants and the tools are available, it can be independent. And last but not least, the museum will have access to the platform that I just presented to you. And you will be able to add your museum on the platform. That's all for me. Thank you for your attention.
N'hésitez pas à prendre contact avec moi via l'adresse mail qui est ici.
Please do not hesitate to get in contact with me through email.